Good evening, classmates and Mr. Blaine. Would you believe me if I told you that electric cars have been around longer than the gas-powered cars we drive today? Some reports date them back as early as 1830, but those electric cars resemble today's electric cars in name only. I would assume that most of us are in a similar age group, so we've all grown up hearing about how bad emissions are and greenhouse gases are for the environment. That's where electric cars come in. I'm Gordon Massey, and I'm going to take you on a little ride, explaining to you some of the driving factors between the push to switch to electric cars, such as the range, or how far they can drive, the environmental benefits, the cost efficiency of owning one, and the charging capabilities of the cars we have today. So on to environmental benefits. We all want to have an earth that we can grow old on, and to those of us that have kids, we would like our kids to be able to grow old also, which is why it's important to know that the transportation sector is the largest source of greenhouse gases in the United States, or the largest contributor to greenhouse gases. Cars and trucks account for about 60% of these emissions. To those of us that don't remember what the greenhouse effect is, it's the trapping of the sun's warmth in the planet's lower atmosphere. This is all kind of created by the emissions that our cars put off. The average electric car on the road today has the same emissions level as a gas or diesel vehicle, getting about 88 miles per gallon. You're not going to find a single car out there, or a motorcycle, and probably not even a moped that gets that kind of gas mileage. So on to cost efficiency. As it turns out, electric vehicles are actually significantly cheaper, at least to own, than it is to own a gas vehicle. Now this gets a little long-winded, and these are all variable terms, but bear with me. So the average U.S. household pays 10 to 12 cents a kilowatt hour, whereas the average cost of a gallon of gas right now is about $2.60 a gallon. You can get 3 to 4 miles per kilowatt hour, and if you base that out over a month of charging at a car that drives roughly 540 miles a month, it's going to cost you $21.60 a month to drive your electric car. Now, if you're in a gas-powered car that averages about 25 miles per gallon, at the same 545 miles driven, it's going to cost you about $56.16 a month, which is, as you can see, more than double. In electric cars, 90% of your charging is done at home overnight. You can also charge while you're at work, whereas when you're in a gas-powered vehicle, you have to stop for gas when you're out. It's that simple. It could be during your commute. You can't fill your car up overnight while you're sleeping. So if you average this out over 5 years with these variables in mind, the 5-year cost for electric is going to cost you around $1,300, give or take. And the 5-year cost for gas is going to cost you about $3,400, which works out to about a $2,000 difference. I don't know about you guys, but I would love to save $2,000 anywhere that I can. Now we're going to talk about charging capabilities. Now the world we live in is not currently perfectly set up to support electric vehicles, but they are constantly improving the infrastructure. Now everybody's house has a standard 120 volt outlet that can be used to charge your electric car. It's not as fast as using a newer or an upgraded charger, but it will get the job done. If you upgrade to a 240 volt outlet, which everybody's house can support, it can reduce your charge time to as little as 3.5 hours. And, there's standalone charging stations. You're starting to see them at Wawa and around bigger cities can charge electric vehicles in as little as half an hour. Currently, there are 10,000 EV charging stations already available, and there's only going to be more to come as time progresses and we slowly switch more and more towards electric vehicles. Lastly, we're going to move on to range. This is something we all worry about. It's one of the most talked about things when it comes to electric vehicles. Currently, there are models out with range kind of anywhere from 100 to 300 miles. You hear 100 and you're like, ugh, that's like not that far at all. But studies show that a 100-mile charge will work for 85% of the population. And really, when you think about it, how often do you drive more than 100 miles in a single day? I know I don't, almost never. And next year, Tesla plans to introduce a car with a 600-mile range. You're going to be hard-pressed to find a gas-powered car with that kind of range. All of this points to why electric cars are the way of the future. And if you're still not quite on board, let me offer a little quote for you. When Henry Ford made cheap, reliable cars, people said, nah, what's wrong with a horse? And, that was the way people thought. But here we are 100 years later, and none of you can imagine what it would be like to have to commute on a horse, or what your life will be like without your car. In conclusion, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that electric cars are the way of the future. Very soon they will meet the need of every American or every person on the planet. They already meet the needs of just about 85% of the population as is. The environmental benefits make it a no-brainer. The range is constantly improving on these cars as technology continues to improve, and the cost savings make it a very easy decision to switch. Hopefully the rest of the world gets on board, not only for the personal benefits that come with it, but for the broader issue of helping to save the environment on the planet we live in. And with that, I'm going to ask, are there any questions?